Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show. Yes, I'm here. I'm alive. Wednesday, May 28th. I know I had every intention yesterday of doing a program, but we were foiled by technology. I know, Robbie, you were heartbroken about this too. We had a fantastic show, locked and loaded, and then simply our Prague internet connection failed us. So I had to scramble and quickly put in a pre-record, which I hate to do, particularly after Memorial Weekend. There's a lot of things I wanted to talk about. Now it's all compounding on me. So anyway, let me roll my sleeves up and get right to it. Greetings again and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust. If you've been in an accident, had an injury, call Sam & Ash, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, I got an email over the weekend, and I intended to share it yesterday, the day after Memorial Day, but I'm going to share it now, given that yesterday's program just didn't happen. This is from a gentleman, listener of the program, longtime listener of the program, who wrote me an email about his father. And he wanted to honor his father. His father, Jack Pipes, at 19 years old, joined the Army. He was from downstate Indiana, got in the Army. They made him MP. So he was a military policeman, ended up being one of the guards of the main prisoners at Nuremberg. So the top Nazis that were on trial at Nuremberg, the first sort of headline trial there, this listener's father was there, and he's actually in one of the famous photographs is standing right behind Hermann Goering. So I'm looking at this photo, and I gotta just say I'm so absolutely just blown away by this. Loved your email. Thank you so much. Absolutely love this. So thank you for this email. I appreciate it very much. And of course, last weekend, Memorial Day, honoring all of the brave men and women who gave their all to our country so that we might be free. Friends, this brings me to a second point that keeps coming to my mind, that it is astounding to me that men as young as 17, and I say men, died in World War II, died at Pearl Harbor, were on the ships that were attacked. And now we have grown adults who are in their late teens, early 20s, even their early 30s, and they cannot get their stuff together. We have, for whatever reason, we have pushed off adulthood in this country. And I think look, we're going to get to everything that's going on, but I always try to look for a through line. And one of the most obvious destructive elements of socialism, of this kind of new Democratic Party, this new left that is pushing to destroy our country, one of the big things that I see, or themes that I see, is this idea of failing. Well, obviously, one, pushing off any personal responsibility for anything. Okay, nothing's your fault, unless, of course, you're a white male. Okay, and then everything's your fault. You were born with the guilt. And so but aside from that, like anything that you actually do yourself, any wrong that you commit, any inadequacy that you have, any shortcoming or maybe lack of character, perhaps, that you suffer from, those are all things that aren't your fault. And we tell young people this, and we have been for years. It ties into the Palestine, movement, the anti-Israel movement. If you think about it, it wasn't the Palestinians' fault that they attacked Israel on October 7th committed unspeakable, heinous crimes. It's not their fault. They had to do it. They were forced to do it by the evil Israeli Jews. When a young man is pulled over by a police officer, asked respectfully to produce his license, to perhaps step out of the vehicle, is given lawful orders, whatever they may be. And you see it now in video after video after video, because now every police department seems to be going with body cam, cameras, and it's all there, right? It's literally creating an overflowing catalog of exemplary policing and really bad parenting. Because there are young adults in this country who simply do not believe they are responsible for anything. Back to that, idea of the traffic stop. I mean, you know what I'm saying here. You just see video after video of these respectful questions being asked to somebody pulled over, and the attitude, and I don't have to do it, and I don't have to comply, and it ends oftentimes, obviously, with legal repercussions, but sometimes with physical harm. Because resistance ultimately faces physical force. This is just, it's idiotic. Look at these Starbucks employees who are out there in histrionics over the fact that they literally have to work 8 hours. That's the gripe. We have to work 8 hours. Well, I got to be on my feet for 8 hours. How dare Starbucks ask me to do this? And I've seen this myself. I think I may have commiserated with you all once or twice that it is really not a fun thing to be an employer of young people in 2025. Everybody's got some gripe. Everybody's got some fragility. Everybody needs an accommodation. I saw somewhere, Robbie, I don't know if you see this, with LSAT, which is the exam that it's the exam that is it's the entrance exam for law school, and it's supposed to determine, I don't think it's always, accurate, but it's supposed to determine your aptitude for ultimately becoming a lawyer. It's not the bar exam. You take that in order to practice law. This is the entrance exam in order to be able to apply into law schools. And I saw somewhere that they've literally, there have been accommodations recently given on the LSAT where you have unlimited time to take the exam, and they will take away the experimental section. Now, as a lawyer, I just explain, so there's always one section there that's very wonky, and it weirds people out, right? You get thrown these tough questions, and you're not sure if it's the experimental section or if it's the real thing. So you go, oh, I gotta really think this through, and it slows you down. They strike that for certain people. Anyway, my point is to get in the weeds of the LSAT. Everywhere we turn, accountability, responsibility is lightened, if not removed completely. First from kids, then from teens, later from young adults, and by the time we've got grown ass men, they are anything but that. And it worries me. I look at these Antifa protesters, these Palestinian protesters, these spoiled brat kids. They don't even, of course, they don't know what they have never had a responsibility in their life. They have time to do this. In college, I worked 2 jobs. It blows my mind. I really do. I diagnose this, when I really get down to the brass tacks of it all, that these college students have way more time on their hands. And this is why, and I'm telling you, this is why I love that Donaldus Maximus is pulling the rug from underneath Harvard University. And I know many of you out there have written me over the last couple weeks and said, "Look, Sam, this is not really the fight for Trump to get into. It's not important. We got a budget battle," which of course I'm going to talk about as well here, probably in the second hour. But it is the fight with Harvard is huge because we're fighting for the soul of the country, and the rot here started at the top. The rot started at our elite institutions, and Trump can't possibly, I mean, even though he is the federal government, he cannot possibly go to war on top of everything that he else has going on with every single Ivy League school, for example. But he can single one or two of them out. He can make an example out of them. He can bring them to heel. It's very simple. I had an opportunity. I was still, my computer was, and everything, my equipment was working earlier before the show. So I was able to pre-record a segment with Riley Lewis. And he asked me about the Harvard thing. And I said, yeah, well, it's very simple. Trump sent a letter back at the beginning of April, and he outlined exactly what Harvard needed to do. And none of it is wild stuff. It basically says, stop discriminating, because the Supreme Court has already ruled you can't do that. They wanted merit-based. Trump and his team, the letter that went out, merit-based hiring, merit-based admissions, protection for all students on campus. Read, not just protection for LGBTQIA plus sized students. I think that's what the plus stands for. Anyway, not just for them, but obviously also for the Jewish students who have come under attack at Harvard, at Columbia, and many, many other schools. And Harvard did nothing. Their choice was to ignore Trump completely. And now Trump has to follow through and bring, but because I'll tell you, the fight for, it's not just about higher ed. It's about our high schools. It's about our elementary schools, the teachers' unions, everything. And Trump gets it, and he's engaged in this fight, and God bless him for it, because I think it's one of the most important things to regain real cultural strength and value of the United States of America. And we conservatives have played possum for too long, rolling over, playing dead, and ceding all of these great institutions, once great institutions, to the left. And they have made a fine mess of it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Roll your sleeves up, folks. We've got a doozy today. Stay tuned. The What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. I am live and not local. I just transferred today, and normally it's tough to do these shows on travel days because it just is brutal. But I am now not in Prague anymore. I'm in the Islamic Caliphate of Paris, France. So enjoying it here. I will be here for a couple days, and then of course back in town and in the saddle on Monday. So I just mentioning the Starbucks deal. This is actually, there's been a big strike where all the Starbucks employees are unionizing, and they're fighting. This prompted or has created some absolutely hilarious social media content. And here on the What's Right show, we like to find these clips and share them. Because, these people put it on the internet, so I think, it's fair game. They put it out there. So this 19-year-old kid, and that's what he is. He's 19, and he has put out a video, okay, about how he has to work 8 hours a day. Now, I just want to play the video, okay? Don't shoot the messenger. Here's literally what it says.
People wonder why we need a union at Starbucks, and I am literally about to quit. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but, I really want to. I almost walked out today, and I'm crying in the back room right now, and I almost cried on the floor. It's just, I'm like a full-time student. I get scheduled for 25 hours a week, and then on weekends they schedule me the entire day, open to close. I'm on the schedule for 8.5 hours, both Saturday and Sunday. I'm like 3.5 hours into my shift. There's so many customers, and we have 4 people on the floor all day. Only 5 people were put on the schedule, and somebody had to call out. And there are 4 people running the whole store, and there's so many customers, and there's possibly scheduled 5 people. We only have 13 people employed at this store, and there's so many customers. And we don't have fair scheduling. Managers don't care about us. Our manager was supposed to come in this weekend, and he took himself off the schedule, so he wouldn't be able to be held accountable for calling out. He just literally tore down the schedule that he was scheduled on and put up a new schedule where he wasn't on the schedule. Also, he couldn't have even seen that he was scheduled in the first place because he didn't want to be held accountable for not wanting to come in. They don't want to help us. We need a union because this can't happen. This can't happen. We need fair scheduling. We need managers to hold themselves accountable for helping their workers. They refuse to turn mobile orders off. We need the liberty to be able to do that because there's so many mobile orders and I need to get through all of them. And then people are yelling at me because they don't have their orders ready and they don't know what to do. I can't do it. And a customer was misgendering me today, like really bad that I didn't have their order ready. And so they were just like talking to each other, and they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard. What the
See, I had to make the clip full length, Rob. You're right. We had to get all of it in. Because somebody misgendered her. It, they, them. I don't know. I mean, the guy, it looks like a guy. I mean, but apparently, I guess maybe this person is crazy. I don't care who you are. Get a life. Like, this is work. At what point did we think that we would just get stuff for free? This is the fundamental problem with socialism. The Democratic Party, beginning with Johnson, we look back at the Great Society. This is where we're going to get equity going, right? And through a variety of social programs, essentially, President Lyndon Johnson started what would be the end of, I think, of real social, of a possibility of social cohesion in America. He made it possible for people to be on welfare. He made it possible for example, African-American fathers to leave the home. Created an incentive for people to make kids with as many dads to collect as many welfare checks and never have to work a day in their lives. Where you create incentives that will lead to bad things will happen. In a capitalist system, you've got to work hard to survive. Nobody has time to listen to they, them tears. Nobody, it doesn't matter. You got to bring home the bacon. You got to bring in the money. This ties in actually quite nicely with the way I explained the problem with immigration. I'm here in Europe, and I've been here for a week and a day. And of course, every European is asking me, what do you think of Trump? What do you think of Trump? What do you think of Trump? And I'm like, oh, I love him. I love him. I love him. What do you want to hear? I love the guy. Well, he goes, well, what he's just anti-immigrant. I'm looking around. I go, have you seen what's going on in Germany? It's literally turning into some sort of, I joke about Paris being an Islamic caliphate. I mean, Germany's even worse. They've just given up the country. And I said, but you know what the real problem is? If you set aside Islam, and I say this to every European, and they start to bleed out of their ears. I say the problem is that it used to be that there was a wave of immigrants that came to Europe and they had to work hard. There's a wave of immigrants that came to the country that had to put in the work, put in the hours in order to bring home bacon. Can I say that, by the way, about Islamic immigrants? Anyway, but they had to work. And now, I mean, the countries that have the worst levels of criminality aren't just the countries that let in all the Islamists. It's funny. They're actually the countries in Europe that give the most benefits. The Czech Republic didn't have as big of an influx from the Middle East, from Syria, etc., from the big wave of migrants that came in 2007 through 2009 and 10, because the Czech Republic doesn't give as generous of welfare as Germany, France, Sweden, etc. Nobody talks about this. You feed the pigeons, right? More pigeons show up, A, and B, of course, pigeons stop learning how to, find their own food. They get used to coming for the treat. So this just is all real stuff. I got to take a break. Lots going on today. We'll get to all of it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Sam Mirejovsky behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show. Happy Wednesday, hump day. I am in Paris. I'll be here for the next few days and back in the States, back home on Monday. So anyway, forgive me again yesterday for my absence yet again. I just ran into technical difficulties, had a whole show. Everything was locked and loaded, and here we go. Technical difficulties. Now I've got to basically cram it all into one program. Did you see this bit where Trump is taking money away from Harvard, but he wants to literally give a stipend to any American that wants to go to trade school? How excited are you for this, Robbie? Like, literally, if you could say, if there's a common sense policy that a U.S. president could come up with in today's, era, this is it. Like, we need less people who are in school studying gender, theory, and we need more people who know how to fix a toilet. The people that are, I've covered this before, the people that fix the toilets make multiples more than the folks that went to school for some nonsense, sociology degree. It doesn't matter, even if it's from Harvard or Columbia or some formerly august university. So I'm saying this is really it. And Caroline Leavitt said as much on Fox News yesterday. This is the White House spokesperson. The big improvement over the former spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre. I like Leavitt, by the way. She's really good and on her feet. But here's what she said on Fox News about how we need more people in the trades.
And the president is more interested in giving that taxpayer money to trade schools, in programs, in state schools, where they are promoting American values, but most importantly, educating the next generation based on skills that we need in our economy and our society. Apprenticeships, electricians, plumbers. We need more of those in our country and less LGBTQ graduate majors from Harvard University. And that's what this administration's position is. And we also are not going to tolerate the illegal, criminal, anti-Semitic behavior that we saw take place at Harvard and many other college campuses across the country.
Amen to this. It's exactly right. And incidentally, right, if the entire focus here is, and we're talking about our economy, we're talking about the debt, we're talking about all these things and worried about the future. If our objective is to right size the budget and the overall, fiscal health of the country, two things need to happen. And I'm going to say two things because I'm disagreeing a little bit with Trump on this big, beautiful bill. And I'll get to that more next hour. But there's two schools of thought on it, just in brief. One is you cut spending, and the other is that you raise economic output, and essentially you grow out of it, right? The GDP goes up, and up, and the debt becomes less significant as our economy begins to boom. Now, I think you have to do both. I think you've got to cut the spending, and at the same time, that in turn, I believe, really will make the economy more robust. But one thing that you do is, look, if you want to raise GDP, that means making more people in America productive. I don't think that, that lesbian literature majors are really creating any value in society, right? I mean, I guess are we allowed to say that? I mean, I just don't think that that brings anything to the table economically. And you can have one or two of those clowns running around talking about something. You're going to find an audience for it, but not at a time when construction companies are desperate to get workers and paying them excellent money, paying them far more than these college graduates who have degrees in worthlessness. That's what we're at. So if you want to do something for the economy, to the point that Caroline Leavitt is making and people inside the Trump administration now are pushing, is that we need more of the people that our economy needs to grow. And that's my pushback to all the criticism. Oh my gosh, we've just lost our competitive advantage. Oh my goodness, we've just committed economic suicide going after Harvard. This was a lot of people talking like this right now. Oh, Harvard is a source of soft power for the United States. Soft power? I think that what they mean by soft power is having Harvard be taken over by the Chi-Coms, right? And exploited by the Chinese Communist Party to get at top secret, not I'm saying classified, but cutting edge technologies, developments, and government contacts. That's one of the big scandals that's coming out of Harvard, by the way, is that the Chinese absolutely used it and basically used grants to Harvard as a Trojan horse to steal information and technology of interest to the Chinese from the United States. So don't tell me that Harvard is soft power. The only thing they're soft at is security and patriotism. There's a scandal there in and of itself. But back to the economy. Yes, we need these types of jobs. Yes, we need to focus on this. Yes, we shouldn't be subsidizing foreign students in our universities. Again, I realize that these students are paying a lot of tuition, but you've got to imagine that at some point, these hundreds of millions of dollars that we're giving to Harvard are going to subsidize foreign students who are coming to the country and hate America, are coming to the country and are joining in protests against us and our allies. This is wild stuff. Here's Trump on Sunday talking about Harvard and just how many foreign-born students they have. Trump, this is just one of these off-the-cuff Donald Trump press conference specials on Air Force One. Listen to this.
Look, part of the problem with Harvard is that there are about 31%, almost 31% of foreigners coming to Harvard. We give them billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard. But they're 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people. Now, a lot of the foreign students we wouldn't have a problem with. I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there because you have 31% foreign. Now, no foreign government contributes money to Harvard. We do. So why are they doing so many? Number one. Number two, we want a list of those foreign students, and we'll find out whether or not they're okay. Many will be okay, I assume. And I assume with Harvard, many will be bad. And then the other thing is they're very anti-Semitic. Everybody knows they're anti-Semitic, and that's got to stop immediately.
Yeah, I agree with everything he said. And I want to add that the news today, this was on Sunday, but the news today that's been breaking overnight is that the Trump administration has now paused all foreign, basically visa applications, has notified all the different embassies that fall under the Department of State and have told them, hey, hold off on this, because what we want to do is vet these students, go and look at their social media and see if they're America hating, POSs. I'm not going to have to tell you what that POS, well, pieces of something smelly. I think this is a brilliant idea, don't you? I think this is exactly the right approach. I mean, people do this for job applicants now. I mean, it's fascinating to me how Republican or Democrat in previous administrations, nobody even stopped to think about this. And I suppose all of this was sort of brewing under the surface. Although, my comment on this is I remember these international students from the Middle East through the Muslim Student Union back when I was at UCI in 1998, 1999, or 2000. Then I dropped out and finished my studies later at Chapman, thank goodness. But I remember how outspoken and militant these people were, and it was not good. It wasn't good. And they were, they intimidated speakers. I think we have David Horowitz. David Horowitz, I think, came to came to UCI at one point and was shouting. He was very famous for debating these people, but it was a wild thing. So we knew that we had these anti-American, Israel-hating, anti-Semite, trash people here, and yet we were subsidizing it with U.S. tax dollars, opening our education system to these folks. And we were doing it because these schools wanted to have more of these people. They wanted to have more of the pro-Palestine folks on campus. They wanted that thought group or cohort, on these campuses, because of course the professors and the administrations all strongly, encouraged it and appreciated it. So it's, this has all been coming basically to a head, and that along with this wretched DEI, which I got to take a break, but I mean, it has to end. It is unconstitutional. It has been, not too long ago, a few years back, deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So even this court, right, said, no, you can't, race-based admissions, you just can't do it. And what was the left's answer? How many times have we played that lecture that Erwin Chemerinsky, supposedly the top constitutional law scholar and the dean of UC Berkeley School of Law, this guy gets up there in front of his class and goes, well, we can think about race. We can ponder the race of the applicant. We can about the race, but we just can't talk about it. Signaling that, there was a way to still do it without creating a paper trail. They know what they're doing, folks. These people are vile. Burn it all down. That's what I say. And there may be a big casualty of it. Who knows? Can this take Harvard out? I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, The What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Show is on the road this week. Forgive me yesterday again for not being here. Tried to make it happen, folks, but the tech gremlins were out to get me. Maybe it was the Chi-Coms, Robbie. I'm at the airport today. I'm in Prague, leaving Prague and on my way to Paris. And I'm, of course, the French are late. The Air France plane is delayed. Probably some sort of strike. Somebody had some histrionics, or perhaps one of the airport workers rolled out a prayer rug on the taxiway. I don't know. I get. Anyway, plane is late. Point is, I'm watching Czech TV. I'm watching the news. The big story developing in the Czech Republic is this, confirmation that the Chinese government, the spies in the Chinese government, hacked into the Czech foreign ministry, which is like the State Department. And whatever, they had a systems of communications, and it was breached. And they have, demonstrable proof, dispositive proof that this was the Chinese government. And the Czechs are furious. I mean, this is normally a government that sort of, kind of plays dead and is not very confrontational, but they are foaming at the mouth, steaming out of their ears, whatever you want to call it. They're really upset about it. And I literally am watching this, and I saw a minister in the Czech government say, the Chinese are very dangerous, and they might actually be more dangerous than Putin, than the Russians. It's a lot of Ukraine hysteria here, given that it's, around the corner, very close. It's in the neighborhood, so to speak. And of course, we Czechs are sensitive to being invaded by the Russians, given that the Russians invaded our country in 1968, my parents' country. That's what prompted my parents to emigrate and ultimately come to the U.S. But anyway, for somebody in the Czech government to say this is a huge acknowledgement. And I'm listening. I'm going to listen. Yeah, no duh. Of course, China's the real problem. And they're going around the world doing it. And that's what they're doing at Harvard. Trust me. So, so Trump's going after them. And, I said just before the break that there's a chance, when dealing with the Harvard thing, there's a chance that Harvard can really suffer some big fallout from this. On the 14th of April, after his first letter was ignored, Trump froze $2.2 billion in grants. Let me say that again. $2.2 billion in grants. This ain't no folding money, folks. On the 15th, on tax day, Trump threatens Harvard that he's going to dump their tax-exempt status. Then he wants, on the 17th, international student records. Then on the 13th of May, so a little bit earlier this month, freezes another almost $500 million of Harvard funding. On the 22nd, moved to bar international students. On the 26th, considers redirecting $3 billion from Harvard to trade schools, right? That's the latest news in the last couple of days. And then on the 27th, just yesterday, plans to cancel all federal contracts with Harvard. Hurricane Trump heading straight for Harvard Yard. I mean, is this an existential threat? Yes. Is Harvard a house of cards? Yes. Do they have anybody good over there? Well, let me ask you another question. How good are their people if for the better part of the last 4.5, 5 decades, they have been hiring only based on characteristics that have nothing to do with merit? Like the problem is baked into the cake. It's a bunch of DEI hires. They're all sitting around, they don't know how to deal with Trump. Trump's got a team of killers now. He learned. So Trump 2.0, is a whole different ball of wax. And they're going to go up against who? You look at this president, what's the name of the Harvard president now who's there? He's the new guy that's come in. I mean, he's just a dweebus. And then you've got Bill Ackman, the activist investor, Pershing Square. He's a super, super smart, erudite guy. He's and himself a Harvard grad. And he is, he just wrote this giant open letter in the form of a tweet. And Bill Ackman's a Trump ally, sure, but he's independent of the Trumposphere, sometimes criticizes Trump as well. And he has just gone for the jugular with Harvard, and he's calling for the ouster of Penny Pritzker, who's basically on the board of governors of the university. All of this is. And he gets at the DEI thing. I'm gonna just have to touch on this when we come back from break, Robbie, because Bill Ackman got me thinking about something. And it ties into this lack of accountability problem that we have in the US. This youth chasing culture, right? Everybody wants to be young. A lot of people, foregoing having kids, families, getting married, commitments. A lot of people out there not, getting out. Maybe they get married, no kids, have a dog and whatever. And Robbie, I'm not attacking you. I know, you guys have a dog, but your dog's really cute. But I'm saying a lot of folks out there who used to go and have kids and start families and start doing that at a relatively young age are postponing it. And it ties into all of this too. But the main thrust of it is, that we are just not teaching accountability to kids. And then when they're getting into early adulthood at universities, whether it's Harvard or, UNLV, that they're not getting it there either. Because hierarchy and success doesn't depend on merit. It depends on identity and activism. And that's just bullcrap. That's nothing. So let's talk about that. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. We'll get to that in the budget as well when we come back. Don't go anywhere, folks. The show has another hour of radio excellence straight ahead. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right Show. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. And then, of course, on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now X. That's right, Elon Musk's platform. If you're not on X, you're not up to date on things. Trust me, it's the place to be. It's free. We have to support it. Every user there is a proof of concept that freedom of speech is important in the United States of America and the world at large. So go on there. All you need is an email. You can sign up. It's easy and straightforward. And then follow me, Sam at What's Right Show. Sam at What's Right Show. There we go. Okay. All right. So I was mentioning Bill Ackman, who is an activist investor, very smart guy, hedge fund guy. And he put out a tweet not too long ago, a couple days ago, I think it was. And he basically, he's been a critic of Harvard for a while now. And in the wake of October 7th has absolutely gone public with his criticisms of Harvard. And he's been unrelenting. And one of the things that I really like, and he wrote, under DEI's ideology, any policy, program, educational system, economic system, grading system, admissions policy that leads to unequal outcomes among people of different skin colors is deemed racist. So exactly. It focuses, DEI is New Age Marxism because it focuses on outcome. If the outcome is different for person A or person B, if person B got less of whatever the goodie was than person A, then by definition, by Marxist, decree, that means that there is an unfair system because equity is the goal. Now, we conservatives, it's always very important to remember what we stand for. We believe in merit. So we believe in equality where nobody is held back for their race, for their gender. Nobody is discriminated against. We're all created equal in the eyes of God. We're all created equal in court and in the eyes and before our government. What we do with that equality can and will, by definition, just by the fact that every person is different, yield different results. There's going to be people who are successful like me. There's people that are a lot more successful than me. There's going to be people that are, all over the map. And yes, some people, and it's not fair, are born more with just innate intelligence, and others don't have it. But we do recognize that you get the opportunity to succeed, and that as part of that, you're going to, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to put a little elbow into it, make it happen. And that when you succeed, you're not going to get attacked for your success. That's a very important thing. Now, DEI, being an offshoot or a reincarnation of Marxist ideology, goes, okay, see, that guy right there didn't do as well as Sam the white guy. So by virtue of that equals, right, ergo, racism exists, bigotry exists, right? And in order to enact the equity, the E in DEI, we have to now help that person up and give them things in order to right-size things and make things equal. Advanced placement courses, it's one thing that Ackman wrote about, are themselves, right? Because they create, some people get into a school, some people don't. That's just how it works. But so admissions policies are racist. The criminal justice system is racist. There's some interesting statistics. You know this about crimes, right? And I'm not getting into just a huge part of it, but basically, I mean, the number of Black Americans as a percentage of the population that commit crime is disproportionately higher than, for example, white Americans or Asian Americans or other or Hispanic Americans. I'm not going to get into it, but the idea is DEI looks at that and goes, well, we basically we shouldn't be prosecuting people of color. We should give them a pass. We're incarcerating too many people of color. And what do we conservatives believe? Well, very simple. You do the crime, you do the time. Whether you're black, white, purple, doesn't matter. You can have spots or stripes. You go to jail if you steal. You go to jail if you drive drunk. You go to jail if you kill somebody. And therein lies the ultimate rub. And I'm glad that the Harvard debate is exposing something that needs to be said and needs to be tackled that is bigger than just Harvard. And that is that equity is fundamentally un-American. It's not right. It's, well, I mean, it's fascinating to me. I'll say this. It's fascinating to me because, you look at the equity question and I'll say it this way, right? It's the same people that will want to have folks that have done something wrong be given a pass, then want to hold whole sections of society accountable for things that they are simply not responsible for. Reparations, right? That's one of the big ones, right? I mean, tell me about what are reparations? They're always talking about it, and they're very serious about it. And if you polled right now influential people in the Democratic Party publicly, they'll say something different behind closed doors, I'm sure, but publicly, if you go at them, what are they going to say about reparations? They're going to be all in for it, or they're going to say, well, we really need to examine it. They're not going to come out against. Reparations are wild. Think about this. Having someone that had nothing to do with racism, me, for example, tax-paying white guy, me, Sam Mirejovsky, nothing, never, ever, not me, not my parents, not my grandparents, not my great-grandparents, but it doesn't even matter. Me, I had nothing to do with slavery. You have nothing to do with slavery. giving money to people who themselves were never slaves. we're never. I mean, we of course know that we've got a history here in the U.S., but people being held responsible for something that they're absolutely fundamentally not responsible for, and this is wild. DEI basically holds you accountable for things you didn't do, and then by the same stroke of genius, absolves you of accountability for your actual shortcomings. And I rarely talk about religion, but I think one of the, obviously, look at something like Mormonism. All right. Robbie and I talked about this a little bit here before the program. And other similar religions have this. You're in Mormon doctrine, you are not held accountable for what Adam and Eve did, right? It's just a little bit of theology. You're not accountable, okay? You're accountable for your actions. You are given agency. And then what you do with it is up to you. I really like this. And Robbie raised a really good point when we were talking about this yesterday, that in Mormon doctrine, kids get baptized at 8, which is the sort of the threshold of where people believed, and whether you think it's divinely inspired or not really doesn't matter, but just people believed that there was some amount of accountability at 8, right? Little Mormon kids, boys and girls, get baptized at 8 because at that point you can accept it, you can make decisions, right from wrong, okay? And that's where accountability starts. Catholic Church has something reasonable, right? The age of reason, around 7, okay? Sometimes later in adolescence. Judaism, it's called a bar mitzvah at 13, bat mitzvah for girls at 12. Before that age, parents are responsible for their child's actions. But then, you go through that process and you're held accountable for your own sins. Even Islam has at puberty, you're responsible for your own actions. Hinduism, initiation occurs somewhere between 8 and 16. And at Harvard, you're accountable for your actions. I don't know, somewhere, after you get your PhD, maybe. Unless you work in public policy, then never. It's insane. And this is what I'm telling you. We have an accountability problem, and we've had leftism spread through our schools, our high schools, our universities, colleges, and it has absolutely poisoned the well of agency. And in fact, these institutions have all replaced the concept of agency, the concept of personal responsibility, with DEI, which is far more than just affirmative action. It's far more pernicious and evil than that. Because DEI says to you, you're not really responsible. There's structural racism, structural inequity that cause you harm, that cause you to be, unable to be responsible for your actions. And this is, by the way, why you see countless videos of oftentimes people of color arguing stupidly with cops about nothing, because, no, you can't pull me over. Doesn't matter that my tags are expired, I got tint in the windows, and I'm driving erratically. Doesn't matter. You can't pull me over. You're racist. The police officer shows up and says, listen, you're breaking the law. I mean, I can pull you over. I'm within my rights. No, you're racist. And then when that person that's stopped in traffic charges at the officer or tries to grab at his gun, and the officer is forced to use lethal force, right? Then we hear nothing but, just complaints galore about how awful and racist and murderous that police officer is. And I'm just sick and tired of it. I think we're all sick and tired of it. I think it just needs to end, all of it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Be right back after this. Don't go anywhere, folks. More of the What's Right show up next.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show. It's the Mirejovsky News Talk 840 KXNT. By the way, you see this land acknowledgement that King Charles gave when visiting Canada? The King of Canada, which is what King Charles is. I mean, it's part of the Commonwealth, British Commonwealth. So King Charles delivers this on his state visit to Canada the other day. And this just blithering idiot, listen.
I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed.
Blithering idiot. By the way, people are pointing out, I guess Canada could now, what is stopping the U.S. from taking Canada as the 51st state? If even the king, the sovereign leader of Canada, constitutionally, right, is declaring that he doesn't have a rightful claim to that land. This is, by the way, this is it's the same thing as DEI, right? Ownership of land, of territory, doesn't matter. If it's a white person that is in a land, if it's the King of England, if it's UNLV, okay, I remember I always come back to one of the most ridiculous, long-winded land acknowledgments I've ever listened to was at the screening of some movie. It was produced by film students. Really interesting movie. When I first moved to town, I went to everything, literally everything. I had time and I did it. And I went to the screening. This guy gets up there, some dean from the social sciences department gets up and just delivers this nonsensical, rambling land acknowledgement. And I started laughing quietly, of course, not like out loud. And my wife is like putting her elbow into my ribs, telling me to shut up. Anyway, but my point in this is these land acknowledgements, you never. I mean, do you see the neighborhoods that maybe were once white? Robbie, you one time lived in Santa Ana, California, right? Did you ever see any Hispanic residents, legal or illegal? I'm just going to say, but let's say illegal. A lot of illegals there. Okay, sanctuary, state. Did you ever, if you imagine the Hispanics giving a land, hey, we'd like to give a land acknowledgement to the white people for building up this beautiful city for us to live in. It never works that way. I mean, it doesn't. The presumption is that the white person has to apologize. This is DEI. And getting the King of England to play along with this is end of times stuff for Western civilization, is my point. I don't see it any other way. So, I'm just, all of this is just brutal to watch. Brutal to watch. I don't know. I think, and, Robbie, it's good you reminded me to talk about this. Speaking, though, of DEI and Harvard, the end result of this all is that all of these people that are in these positions are absolutely idiots, but the students themselves are also idiots. And Harvard, by its own admission, had to develop last year a new introductory course that was basically a remedial math course. Harvard takes, 2,000 students a year. It's supposed to be the best of the best that America has to offer. And they had to enroll a significant portion of that class and this year's class in this program to teach kids, young adults, basic math. They are spending their time on DEI, on land acknowledgments, on diversity, on equal outcomes. But really what it is producing is enormous mediocrity. You've got a guy like King Charles who lives in a beautiful palace and has incredible wealth, and it is the product of the British Empire. They made no apologies. They went out and bravely conquered the world, and they built great things. They developed India. They have nothing to apologize for. The Brits were, they were colonists, but they did a lot of good around the world. But like Harvard now, right? Once a great institution, it's just running on fumes. I look at Great Britain and I see a shadow of its former self. I see a country that is imploding and committing, before our very eyes, committing suicide. And it's tragic. So I'm just all of this I think is coming to a head now and peak ridiculousness. And everybody's making fun of Prince or King Charles, excuse me. And I think it's absolutely appropriate. All right, when we come back, I want to tackle the budget bill, the big, beautiful bill. And I'll tell you my general thoughts. A lot of you are asking me about this. I meant to do this yesterday, but again, just ran into some technical difficulties. All right, Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. See you in just the other side here of the break. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show. Sam Mirejovsky here, Sam at what'srightshow.com, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. So the budget, a mess, all right? Let me tell you what I think, all right? I will admit, I never served in Congress, and I've never spent as much time as I probably should in order to fully comprehend how budgeting works, how these bills progress, to be able to comment on every specific thing that is said on either side of the debate. That's a long-winded way of saying I'm not exactly sure here who to trust, but I'm going to tell you where my instincts are taking me. I mentioned this earlier. There are two sides of the debate. Everybody acknowledges that we have a debt problem. We know that. Now, some believe, and Scott Bessent has talked about this a little bit, how we can grow our way out of the problem. And it is true that we need this budget bill with the tax cuts in it to help get our economy going. Now, there's also some talk about how you cannot codify DOGE tax cuts in a reconciliation bill. And I think that's probably true. But here's my problem. My problem is that we have Republicans in Congress. They have the majority. We have this DOGE thing, meaning in broad terms, I'm not minimizing what Musk is doing. It's very simple, is my point. We cut everything that we possibly can cut that is wasteful, that is extra, that we can get rid of because we cannot continue to grow the deficit. And that is immensely popular. And whether the reconciliation bill is the right place for it or not, it is flat out ridiculous that the Republicans refuse to act on something that voters, both Republican and I think some Democrats and most independents want, which is a balanced budget. My 10 cents on this, folks, is that Trump wants to get it through the door because he's got to push. But I think it's political suicide for the Republicans not to codify DOGE cuts. And if Democrats want some money spent, the best way to do it, I always think, in terms of leverage and negotiation, tie everything up, hold everything back. If you're going to make a big, beautiful bill, put some DOGE cuts in it. Now, people have talked quite a bit about this Musk interview that happened yesterday. This was on a morning show, CBS. Musk came out and said you can't have a big and a beautiful bill, and this was read as criticism of Trump. And I want to play this here because this is the clip of it that's been making the rounds, and it's well, let me play it here, and then we can see.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
So what is this? I mean, it is a tacit criticism of Trump. Because what's happened in this bill is that there's all this money being spent that wipes out the savings that DOGE got. So it sort of zeroes it out. Imagine how devastating this has to be to Musk. And I don't think this is I just don't think that this is a good idea. And I think that we actually have some really strong conservative members in the House and in the Senate who are doing this, and they're not doing it to tank Trump. These are not rhino Republicans. These are not people. These are people that are out there that are really, supportive of Trump and of Elon Musk. Rand Paul on Sunday, Fox News said this about why he's basically against the bill as is.
I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I support making them permanent, so I support that part of the bill. I support spending cuts. I think the cuts currently in the bill are wimpy and anemic, but I still would support the bill, even with wimpy and anemic cuts, if they weren't going to explode the debt. The problem is the math doesn't add up. They're going to explode the debt by, the House says $4 trillion. The Senate's actually been talking about exploding the debt $5 trillion. This year in September, when our fiscal year ends, the deficit will be about $2.2 trillion. Now, people used to always say, the Republicans would say, well, that's Bidenomics, that's Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal.
Yeah, and I agree. And by the way, there's a great podcast. It's about roughly an hour long. Senator Ron Johnson went on the All In podcast with Chamath Palihapitiya, and he basically said that the $1.5 trillion in savings is nonsense. Those were his, he called it BS. And here's a snippet of this.
I come with the private sector. We probably spent more time reviewing my line-by-line budget for my business, and I think other private sector businesses spend more time analyzing what they're going to spend than Congress spends over the entire federal budget. So we've got to develop a process. DOGE has shown us how to do it. Go contract by contract, expose the grotesque waste, fraud, and abuse. But we got to do that through thousands of lines through the federal budget. But nobody's willing to do it. Nobody's willing to take the time to do the work to do it. They're doing what they've always done. They exempt most spending. They look at a couple of programs. They try and tweak them, try and get a big score out of CBO so they can say, hey, look, we saved $1.5 trillion. And yet that's completely divorced from reality. $1.5 trillion sounds like a lot, but over 10 years, it's $150 billion against a $7,000 billion a year budget that only 6 years ago was $4,400 billion. And if I've got one complaint in terms of the process in the House, it's basically devoid of reality. We're not talking about the numbers we should be talking about, which is a 10-year deficit projected by CBO of $22 trillion, averaging $2.2 trillion a year. We don't talk about it. Instead, we focus all on $1.5 trillion, and then they're patting themselves on the back that they didn't even achieve 1.5.
So I just want to make sure, Senator, then that we're on the same page with respect to the math. If this bill passes as is, can the general public take the 33 or 34 odd trillion that we have in debt? Should we add 22 and say we'll be at 58 trillion by 2035? Is that the right math or the wrong math?
That understates it.
That understates it. Our debt would basically double. More than double. This is not acceptable. Now, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, says that this 1.5 billion is a big deal. It's a great deal. So, it's going to happen. This is him on Sunday talking to Jake Tapper. So Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, thinks this is all really good.
This is the largest cut in spending in at least 30 years and arguably of all time. We're cutting over $1.5 trillion in federal spending while we check all the boxes and bring about a pro-growth economy. And the CBO has been panned because, as you said, they don't do dynamic scoring. What that means is they don't account for the growth that will be fostered by all the policies that are in this big piece of legislation. This is not theoretical, Jake. Just remember the last Trump administration. After the first 2 years, we brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. The growth was off the charts. It was an average of about 3% of growth in GDP. Why? Because we cut taxes and we cut regulations. We're doing the same thing this time around, but on steroids. This is a much larger package, a much more robust package with all these features that will really get the economy going.
I don't like the way he's talking. I mean, I want to support. God, I want to support all of this. I want to get behind it. I just don't think this is a good idea. And, I think that ultimately our economy can't grow if our debt continues to spiral out of control. If we pass this bill as it stands, what will happen is, we're going to be headed to a default. Like, this is Argentina level stuff. Frightens me. And ought to frighten you too. So what do I see happening here? Well, Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson hinted at it, talking that this is sort of this once in a lifetime opportunity to get things right. This is back to the podcast where he's with Chamath Palihapitiya. And so listen to this.
This is our one opportunity, and right now we're blowing it. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we don't blow it. But again, that is the reality. Listen, I don't discount the fact that we may lose the House, we may lose the Senate, but I would say we do that because we're not solving these problems. We're going to be looked at as unserious. Our base is going to go, why did we elect you guys? You didn't take the bull by the horns. You didn't solve this problem. You're really no better than Democrats. I think we have to be concerned about that.
Absolutely. So I see already today developing some pushback and starting to push to codify some of the DOGE cuts. The Senate, Republicans are working on that, and I think that's the only way forward. And I think they've got to get something done here. They've got to get some of this debt resolved. They've got to act. And they've got to support Trump's executive orders. The more they support Trump's executive orders, the less assailable those orders are in federal court. Put another way, right? If Congress backs the president in these executive orders to cut departments, cut USAID, cut NPR, blah, 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 then the courts really don't have a lot of authority to do anything, because now the president, again, is operating at the constitutional zenith of his power. So this just needs to happen. But You know, it's been said by many an operator on Capitol Hill in politics that no one's ever lost an election for spending too much money. We're addicted to spending money, and Congress is addicted to bringing home pork to their districts. And it's really scary stuff. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. I think besides saving the country, besides, eliminating the deficit and keeping our debt at least at its present levels, if not chipping away at it, beside that, we have midterms to win. And I'm convinced that if Republicans spend just like Democrats, Republican voters aren't going to show up. Democrats will come out because they're mad at Trump, and they're going to win a whole bunch of seats. Now, I had an idea today. I threw it out there today on on Twitter, on X, at What's Right Sam, and I said, DeSantis came out there pushing for these Doge cuts. DeSantis used to be in Congress. I know he wants to run for president. I understand that. He's termed out here, not going to be governor anymore. So what's his next gig? And I'm just telling you, DeSantis, I wish, my perfect world, DeSantis would become Speaker of the House. He really ought to run for a congressional seat on the platform that he will become Speaker of the House. He should just do what Newt did. And you know how excited Trump voters would be for the idea of having Trump and a guy like DeSantis joining forces, the White House, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the House, and going and really tackling some problems, beefing up the Republican majority, getting in some real MAGA people. I don't know. I think it could be great. So anyway, I mean, this just is important. So, the Democrats out there right now are nuts. We'll get more into it tomorrow, but I know exactly what Jake Tapper is up to. Tapper and his entire apology tour is designed to absolve Democrats of their blame for the Biden health cover-up and lay the groundwork for being able to assail Trump's health in the second 2 years of his term. So Democrats are gearing up. They hope to take over the House. I think they could, based on how Republicans are acting right now. And then they're going to get in there and they're going to start pushing for Trump's removal. And this is what's crazy, right? The entire idea, I know, and it's all funny because at first, you think, oh, well, Jake Tapper's trying to save himself. It's something bigger and more sinister. Jake Tapper he realizes that if today Democrats, journalists, etc., begin to say, oh, Trump is, losing it, Trump's got mental problems, everybody's going to laugh at them. They're just going to get laughed at. But if first the Democrats put themselves through, the paces to wear a hair shirt and mea culpa, right? And then a year goes by, year and a half, and people sort of move on. And then they come out and go, well, we're really going to, hold truth to power. This was Monday. Tapper says he just basically figured out that people in politics lie. This was wild stuff. This was absolutely nuts. This is I'm telling you, this is what the groundwork is.
I think that we need to be skeptical of everything that we are told by people in power. And I mean, that obviously should be the mantra of being a journalist to begin with. If your mother tells you she loves you, get a second source. Right. But we just need to remember that, politicians lie, White Houses lie, power is an aphrodisiac. And we just need to all remember that and not take at face value anything
Yeah. So, I mean, you just can't take for value. Yeah, sorry, it just cuts off there. But yeah, this is the point. You cannot take anything at face value. Well, what does that sound like? It sounds like in a year they're just going to go and start going, hey, well, look, we learned from Biden. Now we're going to hold Trump accountable. It's complete nonsense. Now, to this point, that perhaps Jake Tapper here is laying some groundwork for going after Trump. Here is the original sin co-author, right? So the other guy who helped write the book with Jake Tapper about Biden, saying, this is already, I think, kind of hinting that this is where they're going at, because he's bringing up Trump's health. These clowns.
I mean, are you out there also investigating and reporting about Trump's health in the same rigor that you did this book?
I'm so glad you asked this question, because while we didn't know that much about Joe Biden's health, we know even less about Donald Trump's health. He was completely untransparent during the 2023-2024 campaign. He has not been transparent since, and there is no mechanism forcing him or any future president to being transparent about their health. He could be on anything. We really have no idea. So I think it's like a really vital question. I will say that, in 2023, I wrote an entire piece about how Donald Trump had not been transparent about any of his health. The last month or two, I admittedly have been busy with this book, so I have not returned to the subject. But I think it's completely fair. Donald Trump was older on his inauguration day than Joe Biden was on his.
Yeah, but see, they're already thinking it. They're sitting around talking about this, going, okay, we're going to write the book. We're going to lay the groundwork. We're going to work. We've got to eat some. We've got to eat some crow. All right. And then we're gonna basically we're gonna come back and attack. We're gonna attack Trump. So I'm convinced this is what we're gonna do. Yeah, I absolutely wild stuff. So, folks, just reason you listen to this program is to be able to see around corners a little bit. And I try to keep you appraised of that. All right, hopefully tomorrow, again, no technical difficulties. We'll have a show, even though we are not in the office, so to speak. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Friends, appreciate you so much. Please reach out to me. Send me an email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. I'll see you tomorrow.